forbidden promise, a trembling hand in front of the world, and a love tested by fear. Will Jungkook dare to hold on when everything falls apart? Don't let go of my hand in front of them. The words leave Jimin's lips like a confession and a warning at the same time, just as the stage lights explode into blinding white and the roar of 70,000 voices crashes over them like a tidal wave. Jungkook feels the tremor in Jimin's fingers before he understands the meaning of the plea. Cameras sweep across the stage like predators hunting for weakness. Screens taller than buildings magnify every blink, every breath. Jungkook tightens his grip instinctively, but his chest constricts. He knows the choreography, he knows the rules. Smile, step back, create distance, feed the fantasy, not the truth. Yet Jimin's hand is warm, trembling, real. The bass from the speakers pounds through Jungkook's ribs as if trying to shake loose the doubt he has buried for years. He can smell the metallic tang of pyrotechnics, the faint sweetness of Jimin's cologne mixed with sweat and stage smoke. He hears the chant of their names braided together by the crowd, but in his mind, it sounds like a countdown. 3 seconds to decide who he is. 2 seconds to choose between safety and honesty. 1. Jimin looks at him, not with the polished gaze he offers the world, but with the naked fear he only shows in hotel rooms at 2 a.m. when the noise dies and the silence becomes too loud. Jungkook knows that look. It is the same look Jimin had the night rumors exploded online, the night Jungkook stayed awake refreshing his phone until dawn watching strangers dissect their glances like crime evidence. Please, Jimin whispers, barely audible over the music. And Jungkook lets go. The separation lasts less than a second, choreographed, expected, invisible to most, but Jimin feels it like a blade. The crowd screams louder as Jungkook spins into the next move, flawless, professional, perfect. He does not look back, he does not dare. Inside, something fractures. Jungkook has always been brave in the wrong ways. He can leap from platforms suspended in the air. He can perform with a torn ligament, blood drying beneath his sleeve. He can endure criticism that would hollow out another person. But he has never been brave in front of the world when it matters most. As the song reaches its climax, he catches Jimin's reflection on the massive LED screen. Jimin is smiling, radiant, every gesture precise. Only Jungkook notices the slight delay in his movements, the half-beat hesitation that betrays him. Only Jungkook knows that Jimin bites the inside of his cheek when he is holding back tears. The final note reverberates into the night sky. Fireworks burst above them in violent blooms of red and gold. Confetti rains down like artificial snow, sticking to their hair and shoulders. They bow together, hands brushing but not clasping. When they finally retreat backstage, the noise of the arena becomes a distant storm behind concrete walls. The air smells of damp costumes and overheated cables. Staff members rush around them, congratulating, adjusting, planning the next segment. Jimin walks ahead without a word. Jungkook follows. In the narrow corridor leading to the dressing rooms, Jimin stops abruptly. The sudden halt nearly makes Jungkook collide with him. You promised, Jimin says quietly without turning around. Jungkook swallows. We're on stage, you know how it is. Jimin turns then, and the hurt in his eyes is sharper than anger. I didn't ask you to kiss me in front of them, I asked you not to let go. There is no dramatic shouting, no shattered glass, just the heavy weight of disappointment. Jungkook runs a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. He wants to explain the pressure, the contracts, the unspoken warnings from management about maintaining images, about how easily public affection can be twisted into scandal. He wants to say he is protecting them. But the truth is more humiliating. I panicked, he admits. Jimin laughs once, brittle. You, the guy who jumps off platforms without a harness. That's different. How? Because falling from a height hurts less than falling from grace. Because bruises fade faster than headlines. Because Jungkook is terrified that if the world turns on them, he will not be strong enough to carry Jimin through it. He does not say any of that. Instead, he says, I thought it would be safer. For who? Jimin's voice cracks now. For you, or for the version of us they want? The question hangs between them like smoke. Jungkook remembers the first time he realized his feelings were no longer something he could joke away. It was years ago, in a cramped practice room that smelled of rubber mats and instant ramen. Jimin had fallen asleep against the mirrored wall, exhausted, his head tilted at an awkward angle. Jungkook had draped his hoodie over him and felt an inexplicable surge of protectiveness so fierce it frightened him. He has been afraid ever since. Afraid of losing Jimin, afraid of losing everything else if he chooses him. I don't want to hide forever, Jimin says more softly. I'm tired of being brave only when no one's looking. The words hit Jungkook harder than any accusation. He reaches out, hesitates, then cups Jimin's face with both hands. His thumbs brush away the sheen in Jimin's eyes. The hallway is empty now, the distant noise of the crowd muffled. I love you, Jungkook says, the confession raw and unpolished. Jimin closes his eyes at the sound of it, as if it both heals and wounds him. Then, why does it feel like I'm alone out there? Because Jungkook is fighting ghosts Jimin cannot see. The memory of harsh headlines about other artists. The subtle shifts in tone from executives when certain rumors trend. The endless analysis from fans who build idols in their own image and tear down anything that doesn't fit. He leans his forehead against Jimin's. I'm trying to protect us. I don't need protection, Jimin whispers. I need you. Silence spreads between them, thick and fragile. Jungkook thinks about the boy he used to be, the one who arrived in a new city, chasing a dream too big for his. He thinks about how Jimin stood by him during voice cracks, injuries, self-doubt. How Jimin learned his moods before he did. How he squeezes Jungkook's hand 3 times when he's anxious, a quiet code that means I'm here. Tonight, Jimin had squeezed 3 times. And Jungkook had let go. Footsteps echo down the corridor, breaking the intimacy. A manager's voice calls their names, reminding them of a live broadcast interview in 5 minutes. The world waits, relentless. Jimin steps back first, rebuilding his composure like armor. We'll talk later. The distance between them feels wider than the arena they just conquered. On the broadcast stage, bright lights and polished smiles return. The host teases them about their chemistry, about how they always seem inseparable. The audience laughs. Jungkook's heart pounds so loudly he is certain the microphones will pick it up. When the host jokingly asks them to hold hands for the camera, the crowd erupts in cheers. Jungkook freezes for a fraction of a second. He sees the flash of uncertainty in Jimin's eyes, the almost imperceptible withdrawal before it can happen again. And something inside Jungkook shifts. He reaches out first this time. He takes Jimin's hand firmly, fingers threading together with unmistakable intention. Not a fleeting brush, not choreography, a choice. The studio goes wild, the host laughs louder, cameras zoom in. Jimin's grip tightens, surprised, searching. Jungkook lifts their joined hands slightly, meeting Jimin's gaze without flinching. The world might interpret it as fan service, as harmless affection, as anything but the truth. But Jimin knows. In that small, blazing moment under unforgiving lights, Jungkook does not let go. Conclusion. Love, Jungkook realizes, is not proven in whispered confessions behind closed doors, but in the courage to stand steady when the world is watching. Fear still coils in his chest, heavy and persistent, and consequences may come in ways he cannot predict. Yet as Jimin's thumb traces a familiar circle against his skin, grounding him, Jungkook understands that protecting someone does not always mean shielding them from storms. Sometimes it means standing beside them in the rain, hands clasped, daring the thunder to speak first. Episode 2. The headlines explode before the night is over. Jungkook doesn't even have to unlock his phone to know something has shifted. The air inside the van feels heavier than usual, charged with a tension that tastes metallic at the back of his tongue. Outside, Flashes from cameras strobe against the tinted windows like lightning in a storm that refuses to pass. He finally glances down at his screen. Clips of their hands intertwined flood every platform, slow-motion edits, zoomed frames, speculation dressed as certainty. Too real to be fan service. Did you see the way he looked at him? They crossed a line tonight. Beside him, Jimin stares at his own phone, jaw clenched. The silence between them isn't empty, it's volatile. Across from them, their manager clears his throat. You two need to be careful. Jungkook looks up slowly. Careful about what? You know what, the manager replies, voice tight. There's a difference between playing along and creating rumors that spiral out of control. Jimin lets out a quiet, humorless laugh. Spiral out of control, we held hands. You held hands like it meant something, the manager snaps before he can stop himself. The van goes still. Jungkook feels heat rise under his skin. It does mean something. The words land like a dropped glass. The manager rubs his temple. Listen, I'm not your enemy, but the company has investors, endorsements, there are expectations. If this turns into a controversy. Controversy, Jimin interrupts, eyes flashing. For what? For caring about each other. You know that's not how people will frame it. Jungkook's pulse pounds in his ears. He spent years swallowing words, smoothing edges, adjusting himself into shapes that fit. Tonight, the restraint feels like suffocation. Maybe I'm tired of how people frame it, he says quietly. The manager studies him as if seeing someone unfamiliar. Think about the group, about everything you've built. That's the knife, isn't it? The unspoken threat that loving too loudly could fracture more than just reputations. The rest of the ride passes in strained silence. Back at the hotel, the hallway is dim and carpeted in patterns that make Jungkook slightly dizzy. Jimin walks ahead again, but this time his steps are sharper, restless. Inside their room, the door shuts with a decisive click. Jimin turns immediately. What were you thinking? Jungkook blinks. You're mad. I don't know what I am, Jimin admits, running a hand through his hair. I asked you not to let go and you did. Then you suddenly grab my hand in front of everyone like you're making a statement. Do you know how confusing that is? I was fixing it. Fixing it? Jimin's voice rises. You don't fix fear with impulse, Jungkook. You talk to me. The words hit hard because they're true. Jungkook steps closer. I saw your face. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand that I was the reason you looked hurt. Jimin's shoulders sag for a second before tension snaps back into place. You think I'm scared of rumors? I'm scared of you hesitating. I'm scared that when it really matters, you'll choose them over me. The accusation slices deeper than any online comment ever could. I chose you, Jungkook insists. For one moment, Jimin shoots back, but what about the next one, and the one after that? Jungkook opens his mouth, then closes it. He doesn't have a perfect answer. He only has a heart that feels like it's trying to claw its way out of his chest. You don't understand what's in my head, he says finally, voice unsteady. Every time I think about going public, I see everything collapsing, contracts cancelled, the group dragged into debates they didn't ask for, fans fighting each other. I see you getting blamed. Jimin's expression softens, but only slightly. You think I haven't imagined that? I've thought about it every night since I realized I love you. The confession settles between them, raw and electric. Jungkook steps closer until there's barely space left. Say it again. I love you, Jimin repeats, firmer now, eyes locked onto his. And I'm tired of loving you like it's something shameful. It's not shameful, Jungkook breathes. Then stop acting like it is. Silence swallows the room. Outside, distant city traffic hums like a restless heartbeat. Jungkook reaches for Jimin, but this time it isn't impulsive. His hands settle on Jimin's waist carefully, as if asking permission. Jimin doesn't pull away. I'm not ashamed, Jungkook says, his voice low and steady. I'm terrified. Of what? Of losing you, because I wasn't brave enough, or losing everything else because I was. Jimin studies him, eyes glistening but defiant. You don't get to protect me by deciding alone. If we fall together. If we stand together. Jungkook exhales shakily. Together, he echoes. A sudden buzz from Jimin's phone cuts through the moment. He glances at the screen, and the color drains from his face. What? Jungkook asks immediately. Jimin turns the phone toward him. An article has already gone live. Not speculation, not subtle hints. A so-called insider claims the company is preparing an official statement addressing inappropriate behavior during the broadcast. Inappropriate, Jungkook repeats, the word tasting bitter. Jimin's fingers tremble slightly. They're going to make us apologize. For holding hands, Jungkook's voice sharpens. That's ridiculous. It's not about the hand, Jimin says quietly. It's about what it suggests. Anger ignites in Jungkook's chest, bright and reckless. Then let it suggest the truth. Jimin looks at him sharply. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Jungkook hesitates only a fraction of a second. If they force us to address it, maybe we stop pretending. The room seems to tilt. You'd risk that, Jimin whispers. For you, Jungkook's gaze doesn't waver. Yes. Emotion crashes over Jimin's face, hope, fear, disbelief all tangled together. He steps forward and presses his forehead against Jungkook's chest, gripping the fabric of his shirt. You don't get to say that lightly, Jimin murmurs. If we do this, there's no taking it back. I know. Another knock sounds at their door, abrupt and urgent. They pull apart, instinctively. A staff member stands outside, pale. The company wants you both downstairs, now. Jungkook and Jimin exchange a look that carries years of shared glances, silent conversations built on trust and doubt and longing. As they walk down the hallway side by side, their shoulders brush. Neither moves away. Inside the conference room, executives sit around a long glass table, faces grave and controlled. Screens display social media feeds, scrolling too fast to read. One of the directors speaks first. What happened tonight has escalated beyond our projections. Projections, Jungkook repeats, unable to keep the edge from his voice. You are public figures, the director continues. Your actions carry weight. The narrative forming online could damage not only you, but the entire team. Jimin's hand finds Jungkook's under the table. This time, there are no cameras, no audience, just a choice. We didn't break any rules, Jimin says calmly. The director's gaze sharpens. You broke an unspoken understanding. Jungkook squeezes Jimin's hand once, twice, 3 times. I'm here. He lifts his chin. If holding his hand is considered a problem, then maybe the problem isn't us. The room falls into stunned silence. An older executive leans forward. Are you prepared for the consequences of that statement? Jungkook feels Jimin's grip tighten, not in fear, but in solidarity. He looks at Jimin first, not the executives. Are we? Jimin's answer is quiet but unwavering. Together. Jungkook turns back to the table. His heart is racing, but his voice is steady. Then yes. The decision hangs in the air, irreversible and blazing. Outside the glass walls, the world continues to spin, unaware that inside this sterile room, a line has just been crossed, not by accident, not by impulse, but by choice.
The silence after Jungkook, yes, feels louder than the arena ever did. No one in the conference room moves at first. The executives' exchange looks sharp enough to cut glass. The air smells faintly of coffee and polished wood, sterile and suffocating. You're speaking emotionally, one of them says at last, tone clipped. This isn't a personal matter, it's a corporate one. Jungkook doesn't break eye contact. It became personal when you called it inappropriate. Jimin's thumb strokes once across the back of Jungkook's hand under the table, grounding him. Another executive leans back in his chair. Let be clear, We are not accusing you of anything. We are advising damage control, a simple clarification. You can say it was spontaneous fan service taken out of context. That's all. And if we do, Jimin asks, voice deceptively calm. The older man folds his hands. Then we lose control of the narrative. Jungkook lets out a quiet, almost incredulous breath. So that's what this is about, control. It's about protecting the brand. Jimin's jaw tightens. We're not a brand, we're people. You are both, the executive replies sharply, and the second part exists because of the first. The words hit hard because there is truth in them. Their lives have always been a negotiation between authenticity and expectation. But tonight, that balance feels like a lie. Jungkook stands abruptly. The chair legs scrape against the floor, loud and jarring. If protecting the brand means denying something real, then maybe the brand needs to change. Jimin looks up at him, startled but proud. The director's expression darkens. Be careful. I am being careful, Jungkook says. Careful not to betray someone who stood beside me through everything. Jimin rises too, their shoulders almost touching now, united in defiance. One of the younger staff members shifts nervously. We can't stop what people speculate, but we can avoid confirming it. Speculate about what? Jungkook presses. No one answers directly. Jimin's voice cuts through the tension. Say it. The director's lips thin. About the nature of your relationship. There it is, heavy, unavoidable. Jungkook feels his pulse in his throat. And what if the nature of our relationship isn't your business? A murmur ripples around the table. The older executive sighs. This is exactly the emotional reaction we feared. You are idols. Your image is carefully curated. Any deviation invites backlash. From who? Jimin challenges. Fans who claim to love us, sponsors who profit from us, strangers who think they own us. The room grows colder. The director finally says, if you insist on pushing this, understand that there will be consequences. Contracts can be reviewed, schedules adjusted, opportunities reconsidered. The threat is subtle but unmistakable. Jungkook feels anger flare hot and reckless. Are you saying you'll punish us? I'm saying every action has a ripple effect. Jimin inhales sharply. For a second, Jungkook sees the fear he's been trying to protect him from. Not fear of scandal, fear of being cornered. Jungkook turns slightly toward him. Look at me. Jimin does. I meant what I said, Jungkook murmurs, low enough that only Jimin hears. Together. Jimin nods once. Then he faces the executives again. We're not asking to make a public declaration tonight. We're asking not to lie. A tense pause follows. The director rubs his temples. You have a live broadcast tomorrow. We expect professionalism. No more gestures. Let the situation cool down. And no apology, Jungkook asks. Not unless you force our hand. It's not approval, but it's not immediate retaliation either. Jungkook exchanges a glance with Jimin, a fragile temporary truce. Fine, Jungkook says, but we won't deny anything. The director's gaze lingers on them. Be very sure about the path you're choosing. As they leave the room, the hallway feels different, not lighter but clearer. The lines have been drawn. Inside the elevator, the door slides shut with a metallic sigh. Jimin exhales shakily. That was insane. You regret it? Jungkook asks. Jimin looks at him like he's offended by the question. I regret that we have to fight for something this simple. The elevator hums upward. Jungkook leans back against the mirrored wall. I almost backed down. I know. The honesty in Jimin's voice makes him look up. I saw it in your eyes, Jimin continues softly. You were calculating every worst-case scenario. That's what I do. I don't want you to stop caring, Jimin says. I just don't want you to care so much about everyone else that you forget about us. The doors open onto their floor. They step out, walking slowly this time. You know what scares me, Jungkook says quietly. What? That if this explodes, they'll blame you more than me. Jimin stops walking. Why? Because you're more expressive. Because they'll say you influenced me. Because they always find a way to twist things. Jimin studies him for a long moment. You don't get to decide how strong I am. I'm not. You are, Jimin interrupts gently. You're trying to carry all of it alone. The vulnerability in Jungkook's expression cracks something open. I don't want you hurt, he admits. Jimin steps closer so close their breaths mingle. Then stand next to me, not in front of me, not behind me, next to me. Jungkook nods slowly. Suddenly, a notification buzzes again. This time it's a message from another member of the group. Are you two okay? The company's freaking out. Jungkook types back quickly, we're fine. Another message follows, just be careful. We support you, but this is big. Jungkook shows Jimin the screen. Jimin smiles faintly. See, not everyone is against us. Jungkook's chest tightens with gratitude and guilt. They reach their door again. Inside, the city lights spill through the window, casting long shadows across the room. The tension of the night clings to them like a second skin. Jimin sits on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Do you ever wish we were normal? Jungkook thinks about it. Anonymous walks, casual touches without analysis, love without strategy. Sometimes, he admits. But then I think if we were normal, maybe we wouldn't have met like this. Jimin looks up, eyes softer now. That's unfairly romantic. Jungkook smiles faintly. I learned from you. Silence settles, but it's different from before. Not sharp, not volatile, just heavy with possibility. Jimin stands and walks toward him slowly. If this gets worse, he says, voice steady despite the emotion beneath it, promise me something. Anything. Don't pull away again. Not to protect me. Not to protect your image. If you're scared, tell me. If you're angry, tell me. But don't let go and pretend it's strategy. The memory of that split second on stage burns in Jungkook's mind. I promise, he says. Jimin searches his face for hesitation and finds none. Then he threads their fingers together again. Not for cameras, not for defiance, just because he wants to. This is all I asked for, Jimin whispers. Outside, the world is still buzzing, debates intensifying, narratives forming. Tomorrow may bring harsher headlines, sharper criticism, new ultimatums. But in this quiet room, with their hands clasped and their fears laid bare, the choice feels real and unshakable. For the first time since the stage lights blinded him, Jungkook feels something stronger than fear. Not recklessness. Not rebellion. Conviction Episode 4. The live broadcast studio feels colder than usual, as if the air conditioning has been turned down to freeze nerves on contact. Jungkook adjusts the in-ear monitor behind his neck, fingers steady even though his pulse is anything but. Across the room, staff members whisper in clusters, their glances darting toward him and Jimin like they're watching a fuse burn closer to dynamite. Trending #1 worldwide. He doesn't need to check to know. Jimin stands a few feet away, rehearsing his lines under his breath, but Jungkook knows him well enough to see the signs. The slight bounce of his knee, the way he presses his lips together when he's holding back 1,000 thoughts, the way he avoids eye contact not out of distance but to gather strength. A producer approaches them, smile stretched thin. We're going to keep things light tonight, focus on the comeback, no personal questions. Jungkook raises an eyebrow, and if the host asks anyway. They won't, the producer replies quickly, too quickly. Jimin lets out a quiet hum. You can't control live television. The producer doesn't respond to that. Minutes later, they're seated under bright lights again. The host beams at them, energy almost theatrical. Applause roars, cameras sweep in. Jungkook smiles automatically. years of training snapping into place like armor. The first segment goes smoothly. Music, laughter, safe questions. Then the host leans forward slightly, eyes gleaming with curiosity that feels rehearsed. "There's been a lot of buzz since your last performance," she says lightly. "Fans are calling it one of your most emotional stages ever." Jungkook feels Jimin stiffen beside him. "We always try to give our best," Jimin answers smoothly. The host tilts her head. "Some people are saying it felt especially real." There it is, the bait. Jungkook meets Jimin's gaze for half a second. A silent question, a silent answer. "We were being honest," Jungkook says calmly. The audience murmurs. "Honest about what?" The host presses, smile still in place. Jimin's voice is steady. "About how much we rely on each other." The host laughs lightly. "You've always had great chemistry. Fans love to interpret that in many ways." "And they're allowed to," Jungkook replies. A flicker of surprise crosses the host's face. "So you don't mind the speculation?" Jungkook doesn't look away this time. Speculation only becomes dangerous when people decide they're entitled to the truth. The studio goes quiet in a way that isn't planned. The host shifts in her seat. "Are you saying there's a truth we don't know?" Jimin inhales slowly. Jungkook feels the weight of every executive watching from behind the cameras, every sponsor, every headline waiting to be written. He remembers the promise in the hotel room, "Don't pull away." He reaches for Jimin's hand again. Not dramatically, not impulsively. Deliberately. Gasps ripple through the audience. Jimin's fingers tighten instantly, instinctive and sure. "We're saying," Jungkook begins, voice unwavering despite the thunder in his chest, "that what we feel for each other is real, and we're not ashamed of that." The silence is electric. The host's smile falters. "Are you confirming?" "I'm confirming," Jimin cuts in, eyes bright but unflinching, "that love shouldn't be treated like a scandal." The word hangs in the air. Love. Somewhere off stage, someone drops something. The faint clatter echoes like a gunshot. The host attempts to recover. "That's a very powerful statement." "It shouldn't have to be,"